I still remember that day vividly. The day my world shattered when I discovered my brother Jackson and my girlfriend Amanda together. We had always been close growing up, Jackson and I, despite our differences. And Amanda, she was everything to me for those 2 beautiful years. But betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from those you trust most. What I never expected was my father's explosive reaction and the shocking twist he would leave in his will. A twist that would change all our lives forever. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. If you have ever experienced family betrayal, hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about overcoming life's unexpected challenges. My family has always been well off. My father built his construction company from the ground up into one of the most successful businesses in the state. Our sprawling family home in Connecticut stood as a testament to his success with its manicured lawns and colonial architecture that made it the envy of our neighborhood. But more important than the wealth was what my father instilled in us. He constantly reminded Jackson and me that loyalty was the foundation of both family and business. Dad would often say, "Garrett, a man is only as good as his word. Break that, and you have nothing." Those words would echo in my mind years later when everything fell apart. Growing up, Jackson and I were different in almost every way. I was the responsible one, the planner who thought 10 steps ahead. By 16, I was already learning the family business, shadowing my father on job sites and spending summers in the office. Jackson, 2 years younger, was the charming risk-taker who could talk his way out of any trouble. He lived in the moment and attracted friends effortlessly. Despite our differences, we were close. We shared a treehouse our father built, where we would talk about our dreams late into summer nights. We fished together at the lake behind our property, competed fiercely in backyard basketball, and stood up for each other at school. But there was always an undercurrent I tried to ignore, a pattern I should have recognized sooner. Jackson had a habit of wanting what I had. My first bike ended up with him more than me. The watch Grandpa left me mysteriously appeared on his wrist at a school dance. The baseball signed by my favorite Yankees player vanished from my room only to resurface in his collection. These were small things I forgave easily, chalking it up to typical sibling dynamics. What I could not ignore was the obvious preference my father showed me. While he loved us both, he made no secret that he saw me as the natural successor to his business. "You have the head for it, Garrett," he would say. The discipline. I never rubbed this in, but it created a shadow between Jackson and me that grew longer as we got older. I met Amanda during my junior year at the University of Connecticut. I was studying business management while working part-time at the family company. She was an art history major with plans for museum curation, brilliant and beautiful, with auburn hair and a quick wit that challenged me. We met in the campus coffee shop when she spilled her latte on my economics textbook. Instead of apologizing, she claimed I had placed the book in the spillway of high traffic. Our argument turned into a 2-hour conversation, and I was captivated. Over the next 2 years, we became inseparable. I loved her independence, her passion for art, and the way she saw beauty in things I would overlook. We talked about marriage, about the home we would build together after graduation. I even started setting aside money for a ring, planning to propose after securing my position in the family business. Amanda fit perfectly into my family when I introduced her. My mother adored her artistic sensibility. My father appreciated her ambition and straightforwardness. And Jackson, he seemed genuinely happy for me. He would tease us about being the boring, perfect couple, but I took it as brotherly affection. I was finally building something that was mine alone. Something Jackson could not take away. The first signs appeared so subtly I dismissed them. Amanda began finding reasons to visit my family home when I was working late. "Your mom is teaching me to make that pasta you love," or "Your dad asked about my opinion on artwork for the new office." Her texts became less frequent. Sometimes when we were together, she seemed distracted, checking her phone and smiling at messages she would not share. Jackson started asking about her more often. "How are things with Amanda?" he would inquire casually. "She mentioned you have been busy lately." The fact that they were having conversations without me present should have raised alarms, but I trusted them both completely. There was a dinner at my parents' house where I arrived late from work. When I walked in, Jackson and Amanda were laughing together in the corner of the living room, standing closer than normal friends would. They jumped apart slightly when they saw me. That night, Amanda was quieter than usual on the drive home. When I asked if everything was okay, she squeezed my hand and said, "Everything is perfect, Garrett. I just have a lot on my mind with graduation coming." The discovery happened 3 months later. I was supposed to be in Boston for 2 days meeting with potential clients. The meetings wrapped up early, and I decided to surprise Amanda. I drove straight to her apartment, but she was not there. Her roommate mentioned something about her spending time with my family while I was away. A strange comment that sent a chill through me I could not explain. I drove to my parents' home, planning to surprise both her and my family. The house seemed quiet when I arrived, with only Jackson's car in the driveway. My parents were at a charity function, I remembered. I used my key and entered quietly, hearing music coming from the pool house where Jackson had been staying while his condo was being renovated. What I saw through the pool house window stopped me cold. Jackson and Amanda were tangled together on the couch, kissing passionately, completely lost in each other. I stood frozen, unable to process what I was seeing. It was only when I dropped my keys that they noticed me. The look on their faces, first shock, then guilt, confirmed my worst nightmare. Garrett, Amanda gasped, adjusting her clothes. "You were supposed to be in Boston." "How long?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Jackson stood up, holding his hands out placatingly. "Bro, we need to talk about this. It is not what it looks like." But it was exactly what it looked like. The betrayal was written all over their faces. The days that followed were a blur of pain and disbelief. I confronted Amanda properly the next day, needing to hear the full truth despite how much it would hurt. We met at a quiet park, where we had once talked about our future. Now those memories felt like they belonged to someone else. "It has been going on for 4 months, she admitted, unable to meet my eyes. "I did not mean for it to happen, Garrett. Jackson and I were just talking one day while waiting for you, and something clicked between us." 4 months, I repeated, the timeline sinking in. "So all those times you were at my family home." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I am so sorry. I kept telling myself I would end it, that it was just confusion, but what I demanded, anger finally breaking through the numbness. I fell in love with him," she whispered. "I love Jackson in a way I never expected. It is different from what we had." Those words cut deeper than anything. Not just the betrayal, but the implication that what we shared for 2 years was somehow less than what she found with my brother in a matter of months. I walked away without saying another word, leaving her crying on the bench where we once planned our life together. Jackson attempted to talk to me several times in the following weeks. I avoided him successfully until he cornered me at my apartment one evening. "I know I messed up," he said, standing awkwardly in my living room. "I never planned this." "Did you think about me at all?" I asked. Even once during those 4 months, he ran his hand through his hair, a nervous habit from childhood. "Of course I did. I felt terrible, but we could not fight it, Garrett. This thing between Amanda and me, it is real." "Real," I repeated flatly. "Like our brotherhood was supposed to be real. We want to stay together," he continued, as if I had not spoken. "I know it is asking a lot, but I hope someday you can forgive us." I laughed without humor. "Get out, Jackson. Just get out." I withdrew from family gatherings, making excuses about work. I threw myself into the business, staying late at the office and volunteering for any projects that would keep me busy. But concentration eluded me. Clients noticed my distraction. Projects fell behind schedule. Even employees began giving me concerned looks. My father called me into his office after a particularly disastrous meeting where I had forgotten key details of a major proposal. He closed the door and studied me with the penetrating gaze that had intimidated contractors and competitors for decades. "What is going on with you, son?" he asked. This is not the Garrett I know. Something in his tone, the genuine concern beneath the gruffness, broke through my walls. Before I knew it, I was telling him everything. The betrayal, the lies, the ongoing relationship between Jackson and Amanda. I had not cried since discovering them. But tears came now as I described the brother I thought I knew and the future I had lost. I expected sympathy, perhaps advice on moving forward. What I did not expect was the cold fury that transformed my father's face. He had always been protective of me, but I had never seen him this angry. "How dare he said quietly, his voice shaking with rage. "How dare Jackson do this to you? To this family?" "Dad, I just needed to tell someone," I said, alarmed by his reaction. "I do not expect you to get involved. Family is everything, Garrett. Loyalty is everything. Jackson knows this." He stood up, looking suddenly older yet more formidable. "I will handle this." I tried to dissuade him, but once my father made up his mind, there was no changing it. I should have known his reaction would only escalate the situation, but part of me, a part I was not proud of, wanted Jackson to face consequences from someone he could not charm his way around. The following week, I received a text from Jackson inviting me to dinner at our parents' house. "Important family announcement," it read. "Please come, Garrett." It would mean a lot. I nearly declined, but curiosity and a nagging sense of dread won out. I arrived to find my parents, Jackson, Amanda, and my father's sister with her husband already seated around the dining table. The tension was palpable. My mother looked anxious, shooting worried glances at my father, who sat stone-faced at the head of the table. Amanda could not meet my eyes, but Jackson stood with a champagne glass in hand, looking nervous but determined. Now that everyone is here, he began placing his free hand on Amanda's shoulder. "We have an announcement to make." He took a deep breath. "Amanda and I are engaged." The silence that followed was deafening. I stared at Amanda's hand, now adorned with a ring I recognized immediately. It was my grandmother's antique diamond, a family heirloom my father had promised to me when I found the right person. "We know this might seem sudden," Amanda added, her voice small, "but when you know, you know." My aunt started to offer congratulations, but my father cut her off by standing abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "No," he said, the single word landing like a sledgehammer. "No, this will not happen." Jackson frowned. "Dad, I know this is a surprise, but we love each other." "Love?" My father laughed bitterly. "You betray your brother, lie to this family for months, and call it love. That is not love, Jackson. That is selfishness. That is disloyalty." "Robert, please." My mother pleaded, using my father's name, a sign of how serious the situation had become. But he was beyond calming. "You are no son of mine," he said to Jackson, each word precise and cutting. "No son of mine would do this to his brother." Jackson's face paled. "Dad, you do not mean that." "I do. As of this moment, you are out of this family and out of my will." He turned to Amanda. "And you, return that ring immediately." "It was meant for a woman of character, not someone who betrays the trust of good men." "Robert," my mother gasped. "I have made my decision." My father continued, his voice deadly calm now. "Jackson, you will receive nothing from me, not a penny of inheritance, no position in the company, nothing." The dinner ended in chaos, with my mother crying, my aunt and uncle making hasty excuses to leave, and Jackson and Amanda standing shell-shocked as my father stormed out. I sat through it all in a strange state of detachment, unable to feel satisfaction or pity, only emptiness. The family fracture deepened in the weeks that followed. Extended family members took sides, with most supporting my father's position, but some arguing he had overreacted. My mother tried desperately to mediate, inviting Jackson and me separately to meals, pleading for reconciliation. But the damage was done. The trust was broken. Jackson made several attempts to speak with my father, showing up at his office and even cornering him at his favorite restaurant. Each time my father refused to engage, treating Jackson like a stranger. It was painful to witness despite everything. Whatever Jackson had done to me, he was still my father's son. Still the boy he had taught to ride a bike and throw a baseball. Amanda reached out to me as well, leaving voicemails and sending texts that grew increasingly desperate. "I never meant to hurt you," she wrote. "Please talk to me. Your father won't speak to Jackson and everything is falling apart." I deleted her messages without responding. Her problems with my father were not my concern. Yet in quiet moments, I wondered if my silence was less about principle and more about avoiding the pain of facing them. The situation took a dramatic turn on a Tuesday afternoon in October. I was reviewing contracts in my office when my mother called, her voice tight with panic. "Your father collapsed at work," she said. We're at Memorial Hospital. The doctors think it was a heart attack. I rushed to the hospital, fear gripping me. My father had always seemed invincible, the immovable center of our family. Finding him pale and diminished in a hospital bed connected to beeping monitors was a shock I wasn't prepared for. Stress, the doctor explained gently. His heart is showing signs of significant strain. He needs rest, and to avoid emotional upset. My mother and I exchanged glances, both thinking the same thing. The ongoing conflict with Jackson was literally breaking my father's heart. Over the next few days, as my father stabilized, we had many conversations during the quiet hospital nights. He spoke more openly than ever before, perhaps sensing his own mortality in a new way. "I built everything for you boys," he said one evening, his voice weaker, but his eyes as sharp as ever. "The business, the legacy, the name people respect. I wanted to give you what my father couldn't give me." "I know, Dad," I said, adjusting his blanket. "And you did. But what good is it if the family falls apart?" He sighed heavily. "Jackson betrayed you. Betrayed the values I thought I taught him. I cannot forgive that." Maybe with time I suggested surprising myself. Despite everything, I didn't want this rift to be my father's final memory. He gripped my hand with surprising strength. "Garrett, promise me something. Promise me you'll uphold the values that matter, no matter what happens." "I promise," I said, not fully understanding what he was asking, but unable to deny him anything in that moment. "Good," he nodded. "Then I need to speak with my attorney tomorrow." My father insisted on a private meeting with his lawyer the next day. Though his doctors advised against it, he was adamant. "Some things can't wait," was all he would say. 2 days later, he suffered a second, more severe heart attack. This time, the doctors couldn't save him. The funeral was a somber affair held at the Presbyterian Church, where my father had served as a deacon for 20 years. Jackson and Amanda attended, standing at the back during the service. My mother invited them to join the family in the front pews, but they declined, seemingly aware of the tension their presence created. I delivered the eulogy, speaking of my father's integrity, his commitment to family, his belief in doing what was right rather than what was easy. Throughout, I felt Jackson's eyes on me, but I couldn't bring myself to meet his gaze. After the service, as we stood by the grave, he approached cautiously. "I'm sorry, Garrett," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm sorry for everything." For a moment, I saw the brother I'd grown up with, not the man who had betrayed me. Amanda stood a few steps behind him, her eyes red from crying. They both seemed genuinely grief-stricken, and I wondered if they had truly understood what they had done to our family until now. "He was my father too," Jackson whispered, "and I failed him." I couldn't find words to respond, so I simply nodded and moved away to comfort my mother. Later that night, alone in my childhood bedroom, I made a promise to my father's memory. "I'll make this right, Dad," I said to the empty room. "Whatever that means, I'll find a way." 1 week after the funeral, we gathered in the office of my father's attorney, Martin Schaefer, for the reading of the will. The mahogany-paneled room felt too small for the emotions contained within it. My mother sat beside me, composed but fragile. Jackson and Amanda arrived last, taking seats across the table. The silence was heavy with anticipation and dread. Martin cleared his throat and began the formal reading. Most of the initial provisions were expected personal effects to my mother, donations to the church, and several charities my father had supported throughout his life. Then Martin paused, adjusting his glasses before continuing. Before addressing the bulk of the estate, Robert left a letter to be read at this time. He opened a sealed envelope and began to read. "To my family, the decisions reflected in this will are not made lightly or in haste. They are made with clear eyes about the values that matter most. Family is sacred. Loyalty is non-negotiable. Actions have consequences that cannot be undone with mere apologies." Jackson shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Amanda placed her hand over his. "To my wife, Margaret, you have been my strength for 40 years. I leave you with my undying love and the security you deserve. To my son, Jackson, you chose to betray your brother, the bonds of family, and the values I raised you with. In doing so, you forfeited your right to the fruits of my life's work. You receive no share in the business and no financial inheritance." Jackson closed his eyes, his face a mask of pain. Though he had likely expected this hearing, it formalized seemed to strike him anew. To Amanda Lowell. The ring you wear was meant for a woman who understood loyalty. It is to be returned to the family immediately. Amanda flinched, as if struck unconsciously, covering the ring with her other hand. And to my son Garrett Martin, continued reading, who has always understood the meaning of family and responsibility, I leave the entirety of my business holdings, my financial assets, and the family home. My mother reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. I felt no triumph, only a hollow sense of duty. However, Martin looked up significantly. This inheritance comes with one condition. The room grew even quieter, if that was possible. Garrett must offer his brother employment in the family business in a position of Garrett's choosing. This offer must be made within 30 days of this reading and must be a genuine opportunity, not a gesture. Should Garrett refuse to make this offer, or should it be made in bad faith, the entirety of the business holdings and financial assets will instead be donated to the Robert Williams Foundation for Family Reconciliation, which is hereby established. The shock in the room was palpable. Jackson looked up, confusion replacing his dejection. My mother gasped softly beside me. This condition is not meant as punishment, but as an opportunity for healing. Garrett, you have the wisdom to understand this, even if not immediately. Jackson, you have the chance to earn back what cannot be given freely. The choice now belongs to both of you. Martin folded the letter and looked at us solemnly. Those are the terms of Robert Williams' last will and testament. As executor, I am bound to ensure they are carried out precisely. I sat stunned, trying to process my father's final twist. He had given me everything, but with a condition that forced me to face the brother who had betrayed me. It wasn't just about forgiveness. It was about choosing between holding on to bitterness and honoring my father's last wish. Jackson looked equally stunned. I don't understand, he said finally. Why would he do this? Because my mother said quietly, your father believed in consequences, but he also believed in redemption. He was giving you both a path forward. Amanda sat silently, twisting the ring on her finger. The ring she would now have to return. The inheritance she and Jackson had likely counted on was gone, replaced by the prospect of Jackson working for me, starting at the bottom where my father had started decades ago. As we left the attorney's office, I felt the weight of my father's wisdom. He hadn't just disowned Jackson. He'd created a mechanism for possible reconciliation while ensuring there were still consequences. The choice was now mine to make. The decision weighed heavily on me in the days following the will reading. I had expected to feel vindicated by my father's decision to disinherit Jackson, but instead found myself conflicted. Part of me wanted to refuse the condition to let everything go to charity, rather than offer an olive branch to the brother who had betrayed me, but I knew that would mean betraying my father's final wish. I sought counsel from Carl Newman, my father's oldest friend and business partner who had been like an uncle to me. We met at his fishing cabin on Lake Winnipesauk, where I had spent many childhood weekends learning to cast a line alongside Jackson. Your father was a complex man, Carl said, as we sat on the dock watching the sunset paint the water orange and gold. Stubborn as hell, but never without purpose. I do not understand what he was thinking, I admitted. Why force this choice on me? Why not just cut Jackson out completely? Carl considered this, taking a slow sip of his bourbon. Because Robert knew something about family that takes most men a lifetime to learn. Punishment without the possibility of redemption destroys both parties. So this is about saving Jackson, I asked bitterly. No, Carl shook his head. It is about saving you. Your father saw how this betrayal was eating at you. He knew that if you carried that bitterness forward, it would poison everything, including the business he built. His words struck home. I had been consumed by the betrayal, letting it define me, letting it distract me from the work I once loved. Even as I mourned my father, I recognized the wisdom in his final lesson. What would you do? I asked. I would honor Robert by being better than my pain, Carl answered simply. But the real question is, what kind of man do you want to be, Garrett? The kind who stays trapped in betrayal, or the kind who finds a way forward without compromising his values? The answer came to me gradually over the next week. I realized my father had given me a gift disguised as a burden. He had shown me a path to reclaim my power to transform from victim to decision-maker. The condition was not about forgiveness, but about moving forward with integrity and purpose. I called Jackson and asked him to meet me at our childhood fishing spot by the lake on our family property. It was where our father had taught us both to fish, where we had shared secrets and dreams before life complicated everything. He arrived looking nervous, unsure of what to expect. Amanda was not with him, I noted with relief. This conversation needed to be between brothers. We stood awkwardly at the water's edge, watching the gentle ripples where fish occasionally broke the surface. The silence stretched between us, filled with years of shared history and recent pain. I have thought a lot about Dad's will, I finally said. About the condition he placed on my inheritance. Jackson nodded, staring at the ground. I do not expect anything, Garrett. I know what I did. I would not blame you for walking away and letting it all go to charity. Is that what you want? I asked. For me to refuse? He looked up, surprise evident in his expression. No, I want a chance to make things right, not just with the business or the inheritance, but with you. I destroyed something important, and I do not know how to fix it. There was a rawness to his voice I had not heard before, a vulnerability that the charming, confident Jackson rarely showed. What about Amanda? I asked the question that had been burning inside me. Jackson sighed heavily. She returned the ring to Mom yesterday. We are still together, but things have been strained since Dad died. Since the will reading. He hesitated. I think she truly loved me, Garrett. It was not just about the family money, despite what everyone thinks. And now that the money is gone, I could not keep the edge from my voice. That is for her to decide, he said quietly. But I would rather have a chance to rebuild with my family than lose everything chasing what might not last. For the first time, I saw real remorse in my brother. Not just regret over consequences. It did not erase the betrayal, but it was a start. I am offering you a job, I said finally, starting in project management for our new development downtown. Entry level, same as any new hire. You will report to Thomas Jenkins, not directly to me. There will be no special treatment, no shortcuts to advancement. Jackson looked stunned. You are serious, completely. This is not partnership, Jackson. This is ground floor. You will earn every promotion, every responsibility. If you want more, you will work for it like Dad did, like I did. Thank you, he whispered. I know I do not deserve this chance. You do not, I agreed. But Dad believed in second chances earned through hard work. So do I. We did not hug or shake hands. The wounds were still too fresh for that. But as we walked back toward the house, something had shifted. A door that had seemed permanently closed was now cracked open just enough to let in the possibility of a different future. The next year brought changes none of us could have predicted. I took full control of Williams Construction, implementing new strategies that expanded our reach into sustainable building projects across the Northeast. Business flourished under my leadership, vindicating my father's faith in me. Jackson started his job without complaint, arriving early and staying late. He faced skepticism from employees who knew our story, but gradually earned respect through consistent hard work rather than charm. He struggled initially with the technical aspects of project management, but what he lacked in experience he made up for in determination. Amanda and Jackson broke up 3 months after he started working for the company. The official reason was growing apart, but rumors suggested she had expected his position to come with more prestige and financial reward. I never asked for details, and Jackson never offered them. Some burdens brothers do not need to share. I met Sophia through a mutual friend at a charity event, a pediatric surgeon with a quick mind and quiet confidence that drew me in immediately. Unlike Amanda, she had no interest in the family business or legacy. She cared about the man I was becoming, not what I could provide. When I eventually told her about Jackson and Amanda, her response was refreshing in its simplicity. Everyone deserves a chance to be better than their worst mistake. The first Thanksgiving after my father's death, my mother insisted on hosting the traditional family dinner. Jackson attended alone, bringing homemade cranberry sauce like our grandmother used to make. I brought Sophia, who charmed my mother, and put everyone at ease with her natural warmth. The dinner was not without tension, but it was a start. Jackson and I managed civil conversation, finding neutral territory in sports and business news. When my mother brought out my father's favorite pecan pie, tears glistened in both our eyes, a shared grief that transcended our conflict. By Christmas, Jackson had earned his first positive performance review and small bonus. He used part of it to buy thoughtful gifts for everyone, including a first edition of a poetry book Sophia had mentioned once in passing. The gesture spoke volumes about his efforts to become more considerate, more aware of others. In January, I promoted him to team lead on a smaller project, testing his abilities in a controlled environment. He exceeded expectations, bringing the project in under budget while maintaining quality standards. When I congratulated him, he said simply, "I learned from watching you all these years, even when I pretended not to." Healing came slowly, in small moments, rather than grand gestures. A shared laugh over a childhood memory, working side by side on a complex proposal, standing together at my mother's birthday celebration. None of these moments erased what had happened, but they built something new, alongside the pain, something that honored my father's final lesson. 1 year after the will reading, I invited Jackson to my office. He entered cautiously, likely expecting a performance review. Instead, I offered him partnership in a new subsidiary focused on residential renovation, a chance to build something partly his own while still being accountable to the larger company. "Why now?" he asked, clearly surprised. "Because you have earned it," I answered honestly, not through charm or shortcuts, but through consistent work and changed behavior. That is what Dad wanted us both to learn. The path forward would never be simple. Trust once broken can be rebuilt, but never exactly as it was before. Jackson and I would never recapture the uncomplicated brotherhood of our childhood, but we found a new relationship, one built on respect and clear boundaries rather than blind trust, one that honored our father's legacy while allowing us both to grow. I realized my father had given us both a precious gift with his final twist. He had forced us to choose between holding on to the past and building a future. He had shown us that true justice includes both consequences and the chance for redemption. Most importantly, he had taught us that family is not just what you are born into, but what you actively create through your choices every day. Has someone in your family ever betrayed your trust? Did you find a way to forgive them, or was the breach too great to repair? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real stories about family betrayal and the complicated path to healing. Remember, sometimes the greatest wisdom comes from our deepest pain. Thank you for listening, and may you find the courage to create the family bonds you deserve, whether through blood or chosen connections.